Hi, I'm Michaela, and today I'll be talking about the definition of language, language learning, as well as language teaching, basing this on my own personal experience as well as what I have experienced as a learner and what I observe from students that I have taught. So, first, I will be talking about my definition of language. I believe that language is the medium through which people communicate their thoughts, feelings, and ideas. However, I believe that when we are defining language, we cannot take it out of its cultural context, because when a child is learning a language, their first language, when they're very young, they are not just learning the words for items and people around them, but they are learning cultural norms as well as body language. They're learning manners in their language, which may differ from culture to culture. A good example of the need to understand the differences within a culture and within a culture of learning is that I teach in China. I teach grade 1 students. And in Chinese culture, it is extremely important not to lose face. Therefore, students will not participate actively or raise their hands in a class unless they are 100% certain of the answer. So we as foreign teachers try to encourage them to make mistakes and to learn from their mistakes. But it is well ingrained in the culture that making a mistake in public is a social faux pas. In our breakout group on Sunday, when we discussed the definition of language, we found that a lot of the focus seemed to be on learning words and the meaning of things as a child is learning their language, or as people learn different language, second languages, and additional languages throughout their life. There's a large focus on reading and writing words, being able to understand and to speak the language. But we also discussed the importance of facial expressions, the fact that there are sign languages, body language, and other gestures that cannot be removed from the definition of language, since they do carry meaning. Language learning is the acquisition of certain skills and strategies to be able to successfully communicate in a given context. It requires both passive and active forms of learning: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And when one is learning a language, it is important to strike that balance between the passive and active forms of learning. For example, at the moment I am trying to learn Chinese. So for the most part, I am learning on Duolingo, which is a cell phone app, which really focuses a lot with learning the Chinese characters, sentence structure, and learning the tones of the language. However, I have found that in so doing, I can read Chinese really well and type sentences quite quickly, but when asked a question verbally, I struggle to speak it as well because I'm not getting enough speaking practice. Alternatively, when I was learning my second language, Afrikaans, I found that speaking was easier because I heard it being spoken at home, whereas writing and reading it was a little bit more difficult. I would define language teaching as developing students not only by improving their intellect and proficiency, but working with the student as a whole, developing moral education, working with what the learner has to bring to the environment, as well as understanding cultural differences. In my experience, both as a learner and as a teacher, it is important that learning is a process of active engagement. To create a good learning environment within the context of a community, an environment should be both learner-centered, knowledge-centered, as well as assessment-centered. An ideal learning environment where these three approaches intersect would mean one would be able to create and teach valuable interactive material that learners can relate to from previous experience. This type of environment would also utilize good strategies for scaffolding new knowledge and building on previously taught knowledge, as well as finding the time for meaningful, formative, and summative assessment. It would demonstrate respect for the culture of all learners and their previous experiences.